couple minutes past the hour, and hopefully you all know I don't like making you wait if you showed up on time, so thank you all for coming. This is the OL Network's weekly community meeting. We get together every Wednesday at this time to go around the room and pick up updates from the project and to also hit news items. And occasionally now and then we have guest speakers as well. We've invited Coin1111 to join us today to talk about the bridge project that he's been working on. That's the bridge to Ethereum. Hopefully he'll be able to join us today. I haven't been able to get a confirmation from him today, so that's still up in the air a bit. Comstark, I'm inviting you up to the stage. Should have an invite for you there. Let's go ahead and start off with our usual round of the state of OL. What has happened and where are we? Well, currently this is day 137 days since the launch. We're at Epoch 155, which is Epoch 155 since the genesis of the network. Current number of validators in the set, 78. We had 74 last week this time. The current number of active Carpe installations is just short of 1,500, which is up from last week. Our Discord community is at the oddly even 3,150 50 members right now, up from last week when we had just crossed the 3,000 mark. Since last week, a couple of things happened in the community. Number one, the coordinators working group elected its roster of key roles, with our man Zaki holding down the coordinator position of that group, Io working as the broker of that group, and Alex taking on the archivist task. And for those of you who are new to OL organizational schema, the coordinators group is a meta group that coordinates among all of the other working groups. So it has sort of a central role, if you will, to keeping the project pointed in the same direction. We also had, since last week, a new Carpe release, and this Carpe release is our first truly multilingual Carpe. We now support French, Chinese, and Portuguese. There is a release candidate open for testing right now that adds German and has the first of the transfer support in it. The new Carpe release last week also included an account events page, so you can see what coins have been moving in, and soon with transfer functionality also moving out of your wallet. So Carpe starts to develop the full set of wallet features the one would normally expect from a cryptocurrency wallet, in addition to being a desktop miner. So good stuff on the Carpe front. We also had last week the surfacing of a potential economics issue, or tokenomics if you prefer, with the OL system. There was a thread I started yesterday laying out the situation in the crypto economics channel of Discord. If you haven't seen that yet and you have an interest in such things, drop by and check it out. The short version is, we think we have found a problem in the short to medium term with the project's economics. It is fixable. It's not urgent. In other words, the problem hasn't jumped up and bitten us right now, but we think it is foreseeable, and therefore it is something that we can adjust and do something about. But I wanted the community to weigh in and have an opinion about it, and share, of course, the view that actually there is a problem that deserves a fix, and then we can start working on what that fix might be like. So I flag it for you in the meeting right now because it is an area of interest to the entire project. So I encourage you to jump in and take a look at that. Again, that's in the Crypto Economics Forum. All right. At this point, we typically go around the room and do the working group roundup. Comstark, do you want to kick us off with the Hustle Karma working group update?
Yep, absolutely. Cool. So for those who don't know, the Hustle Karma working group is the group that goes over with all the brokers what tasks are happening, how we can incentivize workers to do more, talk about compensation, and really make sure that if we're going to be valuing labor, we make a frictionless process and we come up with ways to incentivize workers to do their best. So that's what the Hustle Karma group's all about. If you guys ever want to join, just because you don't have an official position in the organization doesn't mean you can't jump in. In fact, we'd encourage it. So feel free to just come in and listen. It's at Tuesdays at, correct me on the time, 9:30 Pacific time each day. Cool. Or each Tuesday, sorry. So Essentially what we spoke about was something called the Full-Time Workers Fund. We want to get up and running for developers so that they can contribute more. We're going to be taking up with OD and the engineering working groups to report back next week on trying to get that up and running. We also discussed in quite length, which we've been talking about, payment to the key roles in the working group, particularly with the community manager coming up, with Daniel taking over community manager. The question is, how much should the community manager make, right? This question still exists as to gas doesn't actually have a real liquid value. So how do we incentivize workers to work when they can't exchange it for Bitcoin or US dollar? And there's a bunch of different ideas floating around for that. And essentially we're considering starting with a number, then adjusting to other working group roles and seeing if it works. And if not, keep adjusting. And if it works, great, we can leave it. So that's kind of where we are as that. And we also kind of all decided, or just reminded everyone that the brokers do have authority to adjust payment as needed. So if you're in a working group and there's something special or the overview rules that we've decided in the Hustle Karma group don't work for your team for whatever reason, you can always adjust payments as needed. So that's the Hustle Karma group update. If you guys want to join next week, just jump into the call and listen. We'd love to hear your ideas.
Thanks so much, Comstock. I appreciate that. As he highlighted, one of the big issues that's going around right now is setting those payments for our recurring roles. That would be like the key roles for the working groups, which are elected, the community manager, and also moderators, which currently do receive recurring payments. And a couple of our engineering people now are moving into recurring payments as well. So trying to strike that balance between how do we incentivize people and how do we not empty treasuries before we have price discovery is a real challenge for us, for sure. But the Hustle Karma group is taking it on. We're pushing stuff through. Things are getting done. So all in all, good news. Let's see what's up next. Next is the Branding and Comms Working Group. I'm the archivist over there. So the last meeting we had was the 23rd, a week ago today. Design Sage has put together missions and bounties for a couple of things relating to community comms. So internal comms, external comms, for example, recording these meetings and getting them posted into YouTube. We also are launching this week our first new member orientation, and there was some creative collateral that needed to be created around that. We also have a new member named Panther who's looking to do some video and animation work for us. And so we've got a couple of bounties spun up there. Again, all just sort of polishing our internal and external comms, which is something that really we haven't emphasized a whole lot, which is great. We've also got a couple of workers now who are interested in doing social media work, which is fabulous. And of course, the big news that everyone on Branding and Comms is pumped about is that Elliot, ET, has been revising our logo designs, and we are getting very, very close to having something we will put out to the community for a vote. That meeting, the weekly meeting for Branding and Comms, is coming up at the top of the hour right after this meeting, and we'll find out if we land that today. Looking at the notes and the comments in the Branding and Comms channel, it looks like that's pretty likely, but I can't speak for the group. But hopefully we'll have some logos to show the community, get the community to react to it, select it, have that finally done, and also then move forward to getting colors and other things sorted out so we have a brand identity. And then finally, skinning the website. Hooray! One of the other issues, and this is very similar to the conversation that occurred in Hustle Karma, is how do we accelerate work streams, right? From Hustle Karma, the perspective is how do we create attractive incentives? From Branding and Comms, the question was how do we accelerate work streams by having more parallel project management in place? We're getting busy enough now that we need not only the doers who can create designs, who can write code, but also the managers who can manage those projects from end to end and get the job done. We also started looking at content strategy as well, so we started putting our hand on the tiller for that and doing some long-term planning too. So Branding and Comms, in short, doing a lot of interesting work right now, and the turnout at that working group is quite good too. We're seeing quite a few people show up for that. So if you have an interest in Branding and Comms, that's a very active area right now. I invite you to come attend those meetings. Again, those occur weekly at 9 a.m. Pacific on Wednesdays. Next up, Coordinators Working Group. The Coordinators Working Group, big news that they held their elections last week. And the elections for the key roles, as I mentioned earlier, Zaki is taking the coordinator role. Io is handling the broker. Alex is the archivist. That group last week was dealing with the topic of payments for the key roles. We got the process sorted out for that. Now it's just up for Hustle Karma to come up with the number. We also had a rather lengthy discussion about recruiting. It's great that we've had an increase in bodies around the community the last couple of weeks, but we really need to sort of spearfish some particular skill sets that we need right now. And so we were tackling the question of how in the world we should do that. IO is going to put together a bounty for a recruiting manager. So if there's anybody out here that has interest in doing that kind of a job for the community, we're actively looking for someone to do it, and there will be a bounty attached to that. We also had a conversation, and you'll hear this come up again with the governance working group, around the topic of community governance. We are in the process of doing some draft work on a potential constitution for the community to look at, and we're also exploring options for proposal and voting management. Radical Exchange Voice is one of the options. We're also looking at perhaps some other DAO platforms as an option too. For those of you who are new to this discussion, the challenge that we face is that a lot of the DAO tooling and related sort of tooling for managing proposals, discussions, and voting is built for the Ethereum ecosystem and some for Cosmos. And so, they're really tied into those ecosystems. You need a MetaMask wallet to integrate with them, or Kepler in the case of Cosmos. And there just isn't much tooling outside of those ecosystems. And yeah, of course, we could build it ourselves, but there's timelines involved in that, and we're resource stretched. So we need another solution in the short to medium term. That is an active discussion that's happening inside the governance working group in particular right now, which meets weekly. Also inside the coordinators group, which meets every other week. So I would expect things will be moving more quickly inside of governance. If you want to engage, there's good conversations going on around that in both of those working groups. There's also in Discord a channel called DAO or No DAO, where we're just sort of tackling that initial question. Is a DAO structure right for us? If so, how do we get organized and start taking next steps down that path? I don't think that's a done deal or a certain conclusion at this point by any means, but I think it's a healthy discussion, and there's some interesting topics and opinions that are coming up inside of that channel. So take a look at that if you're interested in that community governance question. The coordinators working group also got a heads up about that potential tokenomics issue at their meeting last week, and that's what led to publishing it more widely into the community. That's the issue that I mentioned right at the beginning of the updates. And that was the coordinators group last week. The coordinators group meets every other week, so it's off this week, and it'll be back next. Engineering working group. This is the one I've got for Christian this week. He was on holiday when the meeting happened last week. So we had that meeting on Monday. That happens Monday afternoons. The engineering working group is really focused on a couple of big projects right now. The Ethereum bridge. And again, if we get coin 1111, we'll get an update on that. Still don't see him. The Carpe updates, and Adal asked me to give the Carpe update for him today. He wanted to take this time and put in some dev cycles on the new Carpe release candidate. And there is a Carpe release candidate as of this morning inside the Carpe testers channel. This release candidate adds support for German language. So this will be our fourth language aside from English that we've added. And also it has the first of the transfer functionalities in it. So it's super important that we get testers and eyeballs on this release candidate before we push it out to the community. Now, this is a big deal in the sense that it means that Carpe users are going to be able to move coin, right? Which they've never been able to do in the past. They've simply been able to accrue coin. Will this create an OTC market for the coin? Well, I would expect that there probably are some users that would be willing to do that. But I can't promise that, and obviously that's not explicitly endorsed by the project for regulatory reasons. Nonetheless, that will add some interesting aspects to the economics of the project for everybody for sure. Now, a related point on this is the Make Whole update. Ashix has been driving the work on the make whole update. He's informed me that they have all of the information. We know who is owed money, we know how many people are owed money, and we know how much money is owed. We are looking at 2,662 wallets that were affected by that bug in the system. And the coin payouts range from 18 coins at the low end to 8,911 coins at the high end. Why is there a difference? Well, there was a period of time, a certain number of epochs when this bug was active. So the question becomes, is the wallet active, or is the Carpe instance active for all the epochs, in which case it has the highest payout, or was it only active for, fewer epochs, or perhaps just one or two, which explains the lower payout. And that's why there's a variable there. It's strictly a matter of math. I am informed by Ashix that they are testing and reviewing that code right now. He said it is possible it's going to go out this week, but he doesn't want to promise that. He says he can promise that we'll have it in place by next week. Ashix, I'm sorry, you're here. I'm putting words in your mouth. I'm going to invite you to the stage in case you want to correct me on any of this. So we are looking then finally to get the make whole out, which will drop some more coin in the wallet of more than 2,000 Carpe users. And we're also going to have transfer functionalities and a multilingual interface in for Carpe. So really some big improvements in the Carpe wallet and miner. Some of it we've been waiting for a while and we're quite excited about. The next step in the wallet development is to revisit the slow wallet restrictions. And for those of you who are new here, a number of the wallets are tied up in a format that we call slow wallets. And the slow wallets only release coin at a certain epoch, and there is then a daily limit on how many coins can be moved. And those numbers currently are not entirely practical. At least that's the consensus. For example, the epoch release is epoch 1000. And as you all know, we're on epoch, 155, right? So that's very, very long ways from here, considering epochs are the equivalent to days. And second, the daily limit right now is set to 1,000 coins. We're going to take to the community this decision on how to adjust those parameters. But in short, the goal of slow wallets is to restrict the whales from dumping coin and causing instability in the project. So we want to make sure that we continue to throttle the whales with those restrictions. But we also want to be able to allow people who, for example, are receiving funds from community wallets for doing work through Hustle Karma to be able to spend those coins. And so we need to change those daily transaction limits to something that is more practical and useful for them. So expect to see that coming up inside of Discord for a community referendum on what those numbers should be. And then we will try to get that in place as soon as possible, which should, again, open up some of the economics for people and make this a bit more attractive for people and give us more flexibility on things in general. The engineering working group also this last week started talking about the idea of a dev roadmap, or at least updating our dev roadmap, trying to reach consensus around short-term priorities and medium-term priorities in particular. Some of the things that I just mentioned are in that list. For example, the make whole and the wallet featured deployment, and of course the continued work on the Ethereum bridge. And again, Coin 111, where are you? One of the other issues that came up is that our version of Move is not in step with the current version of Move. And of course, if we want to tout our ability to support Move ecosystem, we want to get that corrected. That is a fairly major project as it involves us moving up to be in step with DM 1.4. I believe we're currently in step with 1.3. So we have been looking for an engineer to take on and lead this work. We have found that person, and they are on board and have started assessing that project. So we have begun the preliminary work for making the migration to DM 1.4 and being in step with the most recent version of Move, which is a big deal, frankly. We also talked last week at the engineering working group about testnet startup. We've got enough people now, but we haven't been able to get everybody in the same room at the same time to do the startup of the testnet. By the way, if you're not aware, Coin is being paid for being an operator of a node on the testnet. So if anybody else wants to participate in the testnet and earn some extra coin, by all means, stick up your hand and get in there and do it. We've got the minimum number of nodes necessary at this point in time. It would be nice to have a little more flexibility on that front and a little more robust testnet. So please jump in if you've got an interest in earning some extra coins. All right, that is the rather long-winded update from the engineering working group. And let's see, where are we now? Oh, we're at the governance working group. Sorry about that. Lost my place for a second. On the governance working group, just by way of context, one of the short-term priorities was to provide a polling mechanism for the community so that we would be able to surface better the community's opinion on certain issues. That lightweight polling mechanism is close to completion and is in testing right now. Danielle's been driving that testing for us. And we've got a couple of people in right now kicking the tires on the proposed solution that would give us some civil protection against bad actors inside of Discord tied to a basic voting functionality. So basically, it's a combination of bots inside Discord that gets the job done. We're going to take the first vote on something non-critical. For example, where do you guys want to hold the community meetings? But then right after that, I would expect we're probably going to be looking at taking a vote on that slow wallet configuration parameters adjustment that I mentioned just a moment ago. So this is actually a fairly important step for being able to give the community a voice in things as opposed to having it just driven by personalities, as it were. But again, that's a temporary solution. We're looking at things, for example, like the radical exchange voice or perhaps some DAO structures to move us further down the line and get us closer to that eventual goal, our end state of having on-chain governance and a truly community-governed project instead of purely a validator-governed project. We also, at the community, at the governance working group, went through those community governance proposal ideas that I just mentioned to you a while ago in the context of the coordinators working group. And we also spent quite a bit of time talking about digital identity. The governance working group right now is looking at how to put in place a DID standard for us. We are looking heavily at the W3C standard because of the interoperability advantage that it gives us. Shashank has been kind enough to lead the examination of this. It looks like we've got a lot of the components in place, but it looks pretty good for us right now. The nice thing about the W3C DID standard is you can define what identifiers you consider to be sufficient for the system, and that gives us the flexibility to do some things that are unique here inside of this project. So it's super interesting. For example, our delay towers, for example, could be used as an identifier if we wanted to go that way. So this week at the governance working group, which meets Thursday mornings, we should have an update on that research and an opinion on what is the work that needs to be done. And then we hope to chunk that and get it into Hustle Karma, put some bounties against it, and get some workers building it. We also talked a bit at the governance working group about the economics issues related to slow wallets, and we've got a good system, a good agreement in place on that. Again, the idea is we're going to take that to the community for a vote and let the community decide what is the right combination of parameters. Okay, that is it for the working group roundup. If you wish to be involved in any of the working groups, all you need to do is show up. It's very straightforward. They're open to everybody. A full list of all of the working group meetings is contained under the events tab in Discord. And we've got a new event happening this week on Friday. First Friday of every month, we are going to be doing a new member orientation. And the very first one is happening this Friday. Right now, Danielle and I are slated to lead that, but we're looking for others to join us. BCMO is helping us put together a presentation deck and get all the polish done on this so that it looks nice. And then we thought we'd set this up as something that happens the first Friday of every month and invite new members to come in, basically give them the overview. What's the project all about? What's the history? Where do they find the resources? How do they get involved? All of the basic stuff that you would expect from a new member orientation, and just try to do a better job of onboarding our new members and getting our arms around them and making them feel welcome. So that's what's going on around the community right now. It looks like Coin 1111 has missed the meeting today. So we are not going to get the full update on the Ethereum bridge from him. I do know that he has made very good progress on the bridge, and that last week he moved the first assets from OL into Ethereum. And he said he also has things in place to move assets the other direction from Ethereum into OL. That's a single agent setup right now.
It's important to clarify that that was a test net.
Yeah, on the test net. Yeah, absolutely. This is true. We're not doing it on mainnet. Also, he indicated that this week he'll verify that is the fact that the assets can move both ways, and he is working on multi-sig functionality. Zucky, what else do we know about that? Is there a richer update that we can give than what I just gave out of my faulty memory?
No, that's what I got from my memory too.
Okay, cool. All right, so that is all that I have for you for news today and updates from around the community. There is a fair amount going on, particularly in regard to governance, economics, and dev at this point in time. So if you're looking for a way to do more, those are great places to get involved. Ashix, Danielle, Zucky, you guys have anything to add this week? Anything you'd like to say to the community?
We had talked about, so Inclusion is sponsoring an engineer who is working on migrating the OL code base to a more recent version of DM. So that's going on. The other questions, I think the other fundamental question is really, how to resolve. So like, to me, like there are like 3 or 4 fundamental issues. Like one fundamental issue has been the sort of slow and somewhat unsatisfying progress on the Make Whole project, which we've been sort of trudging through. The intense desire to change the slow wallet settings and unlock the slow wallets. And then the final piece is like sort of how to get us onto like a more mainstream version of Move that other projects are using.
Yeah, I think staying in step with Move is really key for us right now. So it's great to see that Inclusion is stepping up and sponsoring that. So thank you very much, Zucky, and thanks for the Inclusion crew for doing that. All right, this is question time. We open it up to the audience. Is there anyone out there has a question? If you do, put up your hand and I'll pull you up on the stage and you can ask that question. While you're thinking about that, Morton Bits, I see you were here. Morton Bits helped us define or pin down, if you prefer, a bug in our validator onboarding last week, and we have found a worker for that this week. So hopefully that is going to get fixed fairly quickly. So FYI, for those of you who remembered that from last week, we do have somebody working on that bug. Looking forward, next week, Danielle takes over the moderator or the host role, if you prefer, of the weekly community meeting for the month of April. We're going to swap back and forth going forward. So, Danielle, thank you very much. And I'll be handing you the reins next week. And next week, we have a guest speaker coming in from outside. It's Sam Blackshear, the CTO of Miston Labs and the creator of the Move Smart Contracts language. So definitely join us next week. In fact, feel free to invite friends. It'll be interesting to see what Miston's plans are with their new SWE blockchain announcement and with what they are doing for the Move ecosystem in general. Some interesting stuff going on over there. So definitely join us next week for that. All right, if there is nothing else, because I see no hands from the audience, I'm going to say going once, going twice. All right, I'm calling it. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Have a great week and keep pushing on stuff. We'll see you around. Bye-bye.